Howdy, 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 everybody, and welcome to the World Racing League iRacing Series here at Sonoma Raceway. I'm Austin. I am joined by Daniel Doher with Marco Barbaderi in the production booth, and also joining us in the commentary box as well. Daniel, Marco, welcome.
It's great to be here, Austin. I'm hoping that's how you feel too, Marco. It's good to have you back after that quick visit you had a couple weeks ago. Should have a really exciting race today, though, at a really technically challenging track.
Absolutely, I'm so happy to be back in this championship, and of course, from now until the end of the season, jumping with you on board for this one. I'm very, very excited, even though I'm not the biggest fan of this track. I loved the old Cup layout. Now, of course, this is the new Cup layout, I think, the one that they've been using for the last couple of years. But that's because I'm a terrible driver, because I think in reality this is a fantastic racetrack, but you really need to be good to be, to know your way around here, which I am absolutely not. But I think these drivers tonight will be much better than me, and so we are in for a good one.
We definitely are in for a great race here today. We're using the full-on, what I like to call the full-on Grand Prix layout, or full-on Cup layout, or full-on IndyCar layout here at Sonoma. Unfortunately, it's not the high-praised long 7 layout, which has a few differences, but you'll notice where it usually goes. It's a bit tighter. As here are your qualifying results for the GTOs. Ryan Galloway starts out on pole, followed by John D. Price, Chris Pies, Aubrey Kundal, Leif Peterson, Aaron Nash, Greg Cruson, Marshall Aiken, Jim Kessler, Tom Gradwell, Dan Hubery, Peter Kessler, Paul Denton, Brian Leary, Steven Denton, Jacob Tompkins, Cameron Lawrence, with Chris Davis in 18th place. Both of those guys in the 7th time. They're followed by Tim Moore and Sean Moffitt. That is your field for the GTOs, and to Daniel for the GP1s.
Oh, there we are. We got a little bit lighter field than we've seen the last few races in GP1, but we've got Jordan Musser, who came to this class a couple races late from the start of the season, but he's been giving Paul Slavonic and Daniel Sadro a run for their money. Daniel Sadro is running in position 2, Paul Slavonic in position 3, and Dave Dasher with 3D Racing in position 4 in that class. And in the GP2 Mustang, we have Chris DeShong, who's our points leader in the class, and he's followed by Max Lupfer, Phil Fitzmaurice, and JT Tammy, who decided not to qualify today, but he is currently second in points in that series. And in GP3, we definitely have a lighter field than usual, with Jared Joseph and Todd Carver, our 2 teammates who are leading the points in that class, followed by Simon Foweather in 3rd, Greg Mack, Alan Dobbs, Mike Bond, and Greg Brockway, who are all actively fighting for P3. And we can see them as they take off up turn 1 here on their formation lap. Austin, what do you want to fill us in about the track here today?
Well, Sonoma, it's a very famous American racing track. It's one of the most hilly American tracks. I believe it is the most hilly tracks. A lot of blind apexes, especially this corner right here. Got to be careful on the exit and entry. And as we head down this sharp elevation change, it looks like a hairpin. It's not a hairpin. It's more like a 90-degree right-hander, followed up by another blind rise, where you're on that apex and the car is so light there. You got to be so careful as you swing into this giant carousel of a turn. Then you go onto the drag strip and heading into a very, I don't know the word to say about this hairpin, but misleading.
Well, it's interesting because the road surface changes here. Now, Sonoma Raceway is it's a very abrasive track surface, and so it does eat up tires a little faster than some others on the calendar here. But this corner, you have a little bit, just like every other corner on the track, you have a mid-corner camber change, and it really gives you this deceptive amount of grip on entry, and on exit, it's a little bit less grip than you'd expect. So it's one of a few corners that look the simplest, but definitely aren't on this track.
Yeah, that's why I get by totally misleading. You want to take it a bit faster than you do, but when you do, you're spinning off and you're just scratching your head, just wondering what's happening. And you get that in real life as well. And then at the end of the lap, you got that big old hairpin, and that's the real hairpin of the track. You're going to see a lot of guys trying to go for some moves right there as we were looking at one of the Mustangs. I believe that's Fitzmaurice, just taking a very wide line out there as the GTOs are coming up at the hairpin right now. And let's get ready to go because the revs are rising, so are the heartbeats. And let's go racing for the iWRL here at Sonoma.
So today we implemented a rule where a green flag after turn 11 to try and make sure we don't have guys at the back crashing before the first turn on track, or before the lap starts. It looks like we have a driver off in turn 1.
Yes, we do. That is Davis. He's taking a big old spin. Cars exiting the pit lane as the TCRs are getting to go right now as the GP2s are going green right now, followed by the GP3s.
Yeah, now, during practice this last week, a lot of drivers were worried about the fact that, this track feels really slippery when you're driving in the sim. Physically being on this track, every corner has a camber change or a compression change or a blind apex or blind exit, like you mentioned earlier, Austin. But, when you come into the sim, it's not something that your body has that feedback to kind of help adjust. So it was really hard for the drivers, especially our drivers that were the least experienced, to adjust to this track compared to some of the others where it's a little bit more obvious with your eyes what's happening during the corner. So our GP3 Miatas, they were definitely worried about this being a wreck fest for them. So, it looks like the most confident drivers showed up, and the rest of them may have chosen to use their bye week.
As they finish their first lap right now, diving into the hairpin, actually running up onto the curb, doing a little initial D turning style, where they hook their tire overneath the curb and just let the back end sit out just a little bit as Ryan Galloway leads with a 1.5 second gap to Price, followed by Pines, Kundal, Peterson, Nash, Crusall, Kessler, Gradwell, and Huber, your top 10 in the GTOs.
Yeah, and there's already, just like we saw last race, we're seeing Rye step out on that first lap and really build a lead so he can, take it a little easier, be a little safer later on in the race. It will be interesting when he comes up into traffic because this is a very hard track to pass on, especially for cars that rely on aero. So the GP1s and the GTOs, the Audis and the Porsches, will both likely struggle when it comes to, racing close and passing. Ooh, and we're on board with Crusko trying to make a move down the carousel. And this is a 6-story drop, and you have to hold it real tight into that apex zone to get a launch off the corner. Yeah, it's a really great inside move by him, but we'll see if Nash makes a run back here in turn 7.
Now, does Nash have what it takes to dive it up the inside of this hairpin? He's certainly sending it right there, but he's got caught out by the speed, and the car snapped left on him. He got a little bit of oversteer, and the I believe the ESC of that Porsche GT4 car kicked in and just snapped the car back to where it should be. And that is the difficulty of that car right there. You can't really force it to do what it doesn't want to do unless it's like completely off. As this is Kessler being approached by Slavonic and Sadro, and Kessler's been having a hard time.
Yeah, this is a track where the difference between our top 2 classes of cars is, some of the smallest we've seen all season. We're thinking that, for the fastest racers, it's only a 3-second difference between the fastest Porsche in GT0 and the fastest GP1 Audi. It could be less than that, but, by a small margin. So, we're definitely going to see Musser and Slavonic fight through a lot of traffic, the slower GTO traffic today.
Oh, we got a little incident.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness, we got a GTO flying through the air. That's Denton. Both the Dentons are out.
Yeah, at the top of turn 2, what happened there?
I think Denton and Aiken got into each other. Then Denton got in there, and it's hard to know which Denton I'm talking about, but that's what happened. Denton got into Denton, and Denton went flipping over and over again, and both Dentons are out of this race.
Yep.
Ah,
That's a really rough corner because you're at you're cresting a hill as you come over, and it looked like he let off his throttle a little bit there. We could hear in the in the audio. So let off his throttle as he came down. His rears weren't connected, and his fronts were, and caused him to spin like a top. So yeah, that definitely a mistake you don't want to make in the race.
yeah, definitely a mistake, and Denton is not going to be happy about that, and neither is Denton as well. And I'm
Ooh,
going to stop this Denton joke right now.
All right, and this is Dasher fighting through Lupfer and DeShong. All right. Dave Dasher is a teammate of mine, so I'm hoping to see him do well. He changed a car's color from red to his new C8 Corvette orange, without letting the rest of us know. So
It's red.
no, it's orange. It's the C8 orange.
Oh, well, orange is my favorite color, so totally all right with that.
Which reminds me that I haven't opened Trading Paints, so sorry.
Marco.
Fixing the mistake. It's 3:10 in the morning, man. Come on. So deliveries should come in all their glory in just a minute or two.
Well, glad we're looking at. Ooh, Looper almost gets collected, right? Oh, and he did get collected.
Ooh,
going through turn
good
one.
Save though. Wow, that was a spectacular save. That's
I saved it out there, and that is a very colorfully languaged car on the front left bumper of Lufer's car, but on the front of it, it does say fail. So I think he was owning up to his eventual mistakes. So we switch over to Fitzmaurice in second place as he starts to lead out Lufer, who just recovered from that incident in that fail car. As we go down to the GP3 leading pack between the pair, the duo, the legendaries, Joseph and Carver. These two guys always been battling and always been leading throughout this race, and most of all of the races throughout the season so far.
Yeah, they've been really quick, but after seeing them throughout the week, it's really due to how much seat time they put in those cars on these tracks. I was chatting with Todd and Jared this last week about the setups that they're using. And for this track, what they said is they're like, well, we spent a lot of time trying to optimize the setup to get the most out of the car. But then when we sent Jared back to the default setup to kind of do a test and control, he pushed the fastest lap that they had seen all week as they're coming into turn 10 here. This is my favorite turn on this track, by the way. Favorite easy turn on the track. So, super high speed right corner.
It's like a little breath of fresh air in a casual cone murder right there. And but yeah, as you're saying, sometimes the baseline, you get so used to a setup that you go back to the baseline, then you realize sometimes the most balanced car is the fastest car around here, and that must have been a shock to everyone.
Yeah. I know the NASCAR guys like to say loose is fast, but in this situation, I'm not sure that's the case, especially not in a 1 hour race.
Especially going through that hilly section, because I remember Marco and I, during all of last year, we had a race that came over here as that GTO is getting very loose, and as we were saying, loose is not fast here. We got loose going into the S's, and you need to be on point and not out of control through these corners, or else you cannot follow and you cannot make a lunge down the inside like Musser and Savonics doing right now. Savonics going wide, Musser heading down to the inside. They're wheel to wheel, and they're having a little drag race down the short chutes here through the final kick and onto the front straight here at Sonoma. This is a battle we want to be following along the battle for the lead in the GP1 field as they're coming up on this blind apex. If you hit that curb on most cars, you start to lose control. Then it's a little drop down into another blind apex. This is the one that catches out everybody. The car gets very loose and unsettled over here. Then it's that tricky drop down before the carousel. These two guys are on point with each other.
Yeah, and you can see that they're trading in a few corners. Musser was getting a little bit better entry into 3A as he was coming up, but wasn't able to capitalize before 4 here. And it looks like his exit's a little bit cleaner out of 6. He might have a run down into 7 on him.
It's a good run, and it's a good dive, but who's going to carry the most speed? Ooh, Sylvonic. Very nicely defended right there.
And so these TCR cars have a decent amount of aero, and you can be nearly flat up through here in the 8s. And if we ran long 9, you could definitely be flat through them. But you can definitely see they have to optimize for this long straight at the end of the track. And it looked like Musser gave up a little bit too much in the towards the end of the S's.
Well, as they're only 10 minutes into this 1-hour race, they need to be as cautious as possible.
That's one way of looking at it. Yeah, those two, we expect to see them duke it out for quite a while here.
I believe Marco wanted to say something.
Yes, I think that gotta love this TCR cars, and as per usual, well, no, as I mean, rarely in the history of motorsport, especially as of late, but one of the few things that Italy has done right, because I don't know if you know this, but the format for TCR, as we have a stranded GTO car there, has been invented by an Italian guy a couple of years. Well, now it was 2015, so yeah, it's been like 5 years ago now, and it's proven to be a pretty successful formula, I have to say. Not only in real life, but also in iRacing. Very nice and fun car to drive, and many championships have adopted it. It's such a fun car to drive, and a much needed breath of fresh air in iRacing, considering that if you wanted to drive a front wheel drive car, you would have had to drive the Jetta, which I love but not very popular, and or the Kia, so you didn't have a lot of choices.
But nobody joins me in that statement, and they just think I'm crazy, which is true, I am. But the Audi is a definite breath of fresh air. And speaking of fresh air, Musser diving into that fresh air, and it's a bigger dive this time. He's right ahead. He's got the nose ahead, but now Sylvonic, he's got the speed off the exit, and Musser's holding him all the way to the inside line, but he's going to have to let him back through as Sylvonic still leads on. And wonderfully defended hairpin dive by Musser as they got the lap car of a GTO of Lawrence on the back end of this fight. Hopefully he doesn't try to disrupt this fight for the lead that these two are having. It's a great fight. I want to see more of this.
Well, and it's really great getting this bumper view, because you can see how, rough the track is, and you can see how much the corners are changing. Are they banked in your favor, banked against your favor, and all the elevation change. Really, really great view. We'll have to do more of this, Marco.
Speaking of the Jetta, there's one thing in common between this car and the Jetta, other than being front-wheel drive. They have the same gearbox, the DSG gearbox, which of course has been refined during the years. But TCR cars come into flavor. One is the traditional gearbox, and the Volkswagen Group cars can also be bought and configured in the DSG gearbox, such as this one that we have in iRacing. And this means that you have no clutch, which makes for very exciting standing starts on iRacing with this car. Thankfully, we start with a rolling start in this championship.
Yeah, the first 3 gears in this TCR car are extremely short. It makes for really rough trying to start if you don't have the rev limiter set correctly.
I was just trying to figure out the rev limiter, and that was a world of math that I didn't even want to dive into.
A colleague of ours, Adam Edgecock, new guy here in Apex, a very good TCR racer, told me that basically he set up for this car in iRacing his clutch pedal as a handbrake, and so basically he puts the car in first and uses the handbrake, sort of how you use the handbrake in a real car where you are, sometimes in a uphill position, and so he gets a better start. We have a car in a position where you shouldn't really be, I think, on this track. It's Aaron Nash.
That is, Nash was. Well, I think he wanted to try that experimental Sonoma banking, and well, he got lost between a rock and a hard place, and that rock being a tire, and that hard place being a guardrail.
Yeah, Austin, you could definitely see that he cooked it a little bit, carried too much over the crest, and he was still braking at the crest there, and so he's losing it. Once you get out on the marbles on the outside,
snap oversteer right there.
Yep.
Snap got him, and he just there's nowhere to go. I believe the rear end of that car is just straight up in the air, and he's gonna have a long time explaining what just happened into the pit crew. But gotta be honest, it's not the first time I've seen that happen. It's actually a fairly common issue with people just cooking that corner too much, because you and I, we've both driven this track, and both of us, I believe, have gone off of that corner, right?
I have not gone off in that corner, no.
Okay, I have gone off in that corner.
In Formula 3 cars, someone tried to pass me on the inside of turn 6, and there's a very big bump on the inside just past the crest. And so they locked up their left front tire as they went in too deep, too hot, and went straight off into the tire barrier. It's a little bit more of a repair bill than they would want, I think.
Yeah, that definitely would be a very expensive repair, and that bump is here in iRacing.
It is. So just over that crest, there's a little bump, and it can help you lock up that left front if you want to. I don't usually like to. You have to be careful.
I'm pretty sure not a lot of people want to be like, hey, well, let's just lock up. And earlier on the broadcast, you mentioned a long 7 layout. Do you want to explain what the layouts here on Sonoma are and all the different real-life configurations that they have that sometimes are not on iRacing?
Yeah, let's definitely do that as we go on board here with Kessler as he's chasing Aiken down. So we were just in turn 7 there, and you'll notice that there are essentially 4 roads that you can take through 7. That lead into these S's. You can take straight down the drag strip to, a hairpin where it's just a true, really slow hairpin, which is one option. Then you have 7A, which adds this little bump on the track map that you see on the bottom right. So that is the 7A corner, and it gives you a little bit extra room. But you have a wide entry to 7 that is not down the drag strip, and so that's what the SRO cars drive when they come to Sonoma Raceway. And it adds an extra passing zone. Because you can actually carry quite a bit of speed through there, with that extra room that it gives you, and you can pass more folks than you'd like to think. So turn 7 is one of the places where you have the most variation, and then in turn 9, which is invisible on our track map, but whereas we have a really long run down between the turn 7 and turn 11, which is that hairpin on the left of the map, you have there'd be another hairpin inserted in there, a little chicane. So it's those are really the 2 variations that matter. But it looks like Kessler is managing traffic really well. Ooh, cooked it in deep on 4, though.
Yeah, he might have gotten into a little bit of contact. Oh, he did get contact. That wheel is broken. As that car, well, he tried to dive into a corner that was just way too aggressive, and he took a heck of a lot of damage at that front left.
Yeah, and this is something that we were chatting about last week.
Of that car, he took a big old chunk out of that MX-5, and that was just a dive that was not going to work.
Yeah, I was going to say, Austin, this is something we chatted about last week. This is definitely a track of attrition. Ooh, as we see Nash spinning out there.
That's, same corner.
Yeah. Thankfully, this time he didn't take for the escape road, the Kimi Räikkönen style, but...
He did go into the berm.
Yeah, I mean, the suspension, the shock absorbers are not going to like that one bit, but he's still racing. even though he is 1 lap down compared to his class leaders, and now getting into some
Little contact
argy-bargy
with Nash and Bond.
with the GP3 car there.
Yeah, we see Bond ahead of him, and yeah, Bond almost got collected by him as Kessler is still trying to limp his car back into the track. He is struggling with massive crabbing issues after his incident, and he's just going to he's doing the right thing. He's staying off the track, trying to warn everyone around him, and this is going to be very crucial for him to get across the track and head into the pit lane, which doing right now is not a good idea. But thankfully behind him, I believe he has his relative up, and he'll be able to make it into the pits safely.
A bad day for Nash, another incident. And I think he's had enough because he towed back to the pits.
Yeah, it looked like he went off in turn 4.
I think we are on the same wavelength, me and him, talking about this track. This is usually my progression through a race at Sonoma. Spin one time, a second time, then a third time, and then I start wondering why did I do this. Unless it's the very, very short layout. That layout I massively, because less corners, so less effort to learn it.
Well, unfortunately, Marco, in these opening corners, they're the most spun out corners, so it's impossible to save an excuse for I don't like the opening sectors of corners. Yeah, everyone's going to spin out there. And especially these MX-5, they get very twitchy, as it looks like Carver is falling away from Joseph.
Yeah, generally, I've said it many times before, and someone will probably make fun of me for it, but we generally see the two run together and try to pull away from the pack, but it looks like Joseph's pulling away from his teammate.
This is Dan Huberty. Sort of passing Todd Carver up there. And it just looks like Todd has been struggling with this track.
He's definitely turned enough practice that I've seen him be pretty quick in that car.
No, sorry, this is a mistake. I was trying to compare the 2 lap times, but now we have Huberty in the middle. But let's see, 151.1 and 151.5 for Carver. So he lost 4/10 of a second there. But yes, he has been dropping quite a bit in the last couple of laps.
Well,
maybe we can go on board with him as he comes around for the next lap and kind of see where he's, what he's doing around the track.
Yeah.
The Miatas are actually very nice to watch onboard laps.
Okay.
Just in that they're not so fast that you can't react.
Now they are next to each other. There we go. So you can see lap time comparison. In fact, it was lap 8 where he lost 2 seconds. Then 1/10, 8/10 of a second, and now 3/10 of a second.
That might be when some GTOs were coming through their field, and Carver had to take evasive action to avoid a charging GTO leader, and that may have set him back to 2 seconds down, and just being lapped by these faster classes might be just upsetting these cars, because you're always going to have that in multi-class events, because it can't control the traffic, and even if you're running nose to tail of your teammate, something will always happen.
Yeah, and I think that makes perfect sense, Austin. As we take a look at Carver here, you can kind of see how he has to throw the car around some of these corners, much like we were chatting about earlier. Coming into turn 4, this corner is one that's like one of the hardest corners for me, in that I'm always missing the apex. I have to look 6 feet in the dirt to make it, because the road falls away from you. But here at turn 6, we'll see if he takes an inside or outside approach. He may be struggling with tires.
That's a good shout, because he did take that inside line, and I heard the tires struggling for grip as he's just putting the pedal to the metal. You could already hear him just squealing for pain. And we're 23 minutes into this race, and if you're already struggling for grip this much, he might have to go into the pits and take some tires with him.
Yeah. But so these cars will be pretty, they'll be carrying as much as they can through the 8s, but they don't have enough downforce to stay flat through here. And so really they pick up a lot of speed coming down around 9. And this is an interesting one because you're really trying to aim the car between the Toyota and the white sign and then wait till you get to that last Kimota sign before you get back on throttle. Otherwise, you run the risk of plowing straight out into the dirt. So it's, an easy corner to get wrong, but it looks like the simplest corner on the track.
It definitely is a simple corner and a misleading corner. And I just had another idea of why he might be going a bit slow. As let's take too much mustard on the exit, and that Porsche of Dan Huberty, too much load into the spring, and and it just got overloaded right there, and he went hard into the wall.
Yes, he did.
So,
but at least that was a mild enough wreck where he could make it back to the pits and save the tow time.
That's true. If you save the tow time, you gain a lot of time compared to somebody else. If we go back to Carver, I want to see if this theory I have working in my head is right. All right. Well, that shot just completely disowned my theory, as I thought there might have been a cone stuck under the car.
Oh, yeah. Him and Jared do take all the cones in 11. That's part of their line. They kind of run to the very edge of the track, and they hit all the cones.
Yeah, they do risk getting a cone stuck in there, which I believe Marco has experienced before.
Well, more than the cones, I have bad memories of these. You might see in some of the shots, you will see there are some these things right here that are the pole. So I got one in Laguna Seca with the Cayman, the GT4. Then I was minding my own business, and at a certain point, I felt like someone hit me in the back, but I was completely alone. That was actually very scary, and I went flying into the wall, and I couldn't understand what happened to me. Then I saw the replay, and the moment my car broke loose, you could see one of those poles basically being spewed from the back of the car like a Super Mario, a Mario Kart turtle shell, basically. And then my car went. So they can be, the cones can slow you down and they can be very annoying, but those bigger cones, those poles, can really put an end to your race.
Definitely they can. So something these drivers should be aware about, but it's definitely an overlooked factor sometimes.
I mean, if you collect one of those, there would be, I think, bigger issues with your driving. As was in my case, because at least here in Sonoma they are pretty far away from the racing line, these bigger cones. But in Laguna Seca, of course, I got one of them coming out of the pits, which it's not any consolation, but it's much easier to get one. But yeah, the cones are much easier to get, and in fact. Basically, they're in the final corner, as we have
the outside of Musser.
In that final corner, it's quite easy to get. It's almost like the preferred race line.
Yeah, the Laguna Seca has been notorious with its pole killing, and if you run a Formula car and you ran the Formula sprint race there, You've seen the incidents where opponents could just get stuck in somebody's car. While we were on that little rant, a little bit of a sketchy moment between Musser and Lawrence, as Lawrence tried to swing around the outside of Musser, and he's got a dive going on right here. He's edging it out as much as he can.
Wow.
And he's got that position. But as they were going around the outside, turn 3, as they headed into turn 4, it looked like they both got into contact with each other. And one person will be happy about that, but both these guys are not happy. The only one that I was happy about was Slavonic.
Well, happy might be an overstatement. I think Paul has mentioned a few times when we've had him on that he really enjoys the competition, but We are 29 minutes into the race, and we're starting to see a few folks pit. We did make a few fuel changes to try and tighten up the pit window. So, anywhere between 23 minutes and 38 minutes, we would expect these cars to pit unless they're significantly saving fuel. It does give the drivers a lot of options. A lot of the feedback was they want to still have options for running short, running long. But we'll see how that plays out here in the next 10 minutes. Ooh, Kondo and Pies. Now, that's not a pair that you always see duking it out.
Yeah, that is honestly a odd combination as they're passing either Carver or...
That red, I think, is Jared, I believe.
Yes, that is Jared. Yeah, that's Jared Thomas. Carver is the blue.
Yeah. Now, these two cars coming up one, it's interesting because they have enough aero. They can take two approaches into turn one. One of them is harder on tires than the other. And looks like they're both taking the narrow entry, which is that, it's a little bit tougher to pull off on the cars that don't have any aero grip. But it looks like they're fighting for it hard here. Chris Pies feels the pressure. Coming up over 3A crest. Yeah. Down into 4 now.
Kondo has that opening sector locked down.
Yep, losing a little bit there. Didn't stay on throttle. But cooks it hot in the entry there.
Corner entry
has a
for
really
Kondo,
good line through there.
I've always noticed that Kondo has great corner entries. It's just the mid-corner and corner exit has been a bit sketchy as this braking zone, that lapped car really held out Pies right there, and Kondo said thank you very much, but once again, corner exit, Pies starts walking away.
Well, I don't know if that's too much of walking. That's a half-second gap still, so that's anyone's ball game.
Well, they were down to about 2/10 in the entry of the corner.
I'm allowed to disagree with you, Austin.
Yes, you are.
Marco, you're going to have to be the tiebreaker.
Usually the camera guy is neutral, like Switzerland. Don't interfere in the in commentary box disputes. What I can tell you is that halfway mark of the race has gone past. And it always, and we were talking about this in the very opening of the race, but now we have a little bit more consistent and, reliable data. You can see on the top of your screen how close the GTOs and the GP1s are. And this is, of course, something that has its own, repercussion also in real life. When the Cayman, when the GT4s and the TCR cars race together, also in iRacing. My prediction is that next season we are going to get a sprint series with the TCR cars only on the model of the the F3 sprint series and the BMW 12-minute races. Just my thought, especially since now we have also a series where you can race the Cayman on his own. The Porsche Sprint Series, as these two drivers are still battling it out, but I'm afraid that with the addition, it made sense as Galloway gets a fast lap of the race 37.1. It made sense, of course, because it's a recreation of the Michelin Pilot Challenge. It made sense to have GT4 and TCR together in official racing, but I feel that we have lost a bit of the exciting TCR only battles, because since the pace is so equal, it's not uncommon to have the slower GT4s or the faster TCRs usually battling against each other, and that of course ruins a bit the flow of the TCR races, which are usually nose to tail all the way down for the first 5, 6, 7 places, both in real life and in iRacing. So yeah, that's my prediction. We will see if that will come to fruition in
Ooh,
Austin, I completely lost track of which week of iRacing we are now, but must be decently soon, the week 13. So we are 1 month away from the new build.
Or 9.
And Marco, do you think you could explain that to some of the other viewers? We do have some viewers from WRL that may not be familiar with iRacing's 13-week series. Is there kind of a short explanation that you can fill them in on how that works?
Yes, every iRacing year is divided into 4 seasons. Each season is 12 weeks long in all of the series, or say 99% of the series follow a 12-week schedule. Each week you race on one track and one track only, and your best 8 results in those 12 weeks will count towards your championship as Chris Pice goes into the pits.
And I'm tracking his pit times.
Well, we have... there we go, the pit time should come up when he stops. Basically, so to have a full season, you only need to compete in 8 weeks. At the end of the 12 weeks, you have a 1 week break, week 13, that is when the new build is released, and when you basically usually get the new content, and then you start over again. Of course, it's 12 weeks plus times 4 plus 4 weeks of break. So in reality, 2020 season and 2021, etc., will start mid-December in iRacing, so a little bit earlier than expected. I mean, a little bit earlier than the normal calendar year. But yeah, that's the way it works, and of course, always a great sense of excitement builds up when the new season comes, because again, 99% of the times it equals some new content, either paid content.
Models,
yeah, exactly. New updates, new cars, new tracks. Something new always happens with iRacing as the race leader comes in, second place car comes in. So it was an 11.1 second stop for Chris Pice, who I think also races with us in the Atlanta Motorsports Park Championship that we broadcast on
tomorrow,
Wednesday nights. Yes. Oh, Slavonik has gone wide and lost a bit of time.
And that's given him
he just got out on the marbles
and overcooked it.
Yep.
Yeah, those front-wheel drive cars, very difficult to control through there, because it's got to be off the gas, you let it turn, then it wants to try to get it back on, it just doesn't want to turn as well. As Price and Peterson, both those guys heading out of the pit lane
and
right
Austin,
now.
What happened there, Ryan Galloway lost 2 seconds in the pit against Chris Pies. It looks like John Price also lost 2 seconds there. So we're definitely seeing a deviation in pit times due to, fuel and how well people are optimizing their pit speeds.
That is true. And if their pit entry was compromised or not. Because you do have to take a hairpin into there.
Problem for Kessler.
Is Kessler, and going slow is Aiken.
It's not a place you want to spin.
I think there may have been more to that and might have had contact between two cars.
Oh, banger.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why Aiken was stopped on the side of the road. Oh.
So which driver was that?
That was Aiken and Kessler.
Okay.
Yeah, Aiken's the one who hit them. You see Jim Kessler come back, and Aiken waited for him and then overtook him. So he gained the position back, but the brakes didn't work. We're looking at Kundal. Haven't gone into the pits yet. Sitting up in the lead by 4 seconds, and that time is falling down fast to Galloway. They need to go into the pits.
Yeah, Kundal is still not pitted yet, so you know, I would expect this to be the last lap of fuel in that car, but you know, especially given the way that Kundal was fighting with pies. Ooh, nice pass on the inside there.
Great line. Didn't force anything out of the ordinary.
Now, during the last couple weeks, I've seen Kundal practice with Rye Galloway. You know, a few times there were some comments, you know, thanks for letting me run with you and this and that. But I think, you know, I'm not sure if the two are explicitly teammates, but it does look like they practice together. So, or at least in the, you know, the pub, our hosted practice server. So, it doesn't surprise me to see Kundal, you know, continually improving over the course of the season.
Yeah, improving with the, well, one of the best drivers in this series is always a big factor. Doesn't mean that they're teammates. It can also mean that they're good friends and they respect each other's driving outside of the track. And in comes Kundal. And retake the lead is Rye Galloway.
So everyone in GTO has stopped. We are still waiting for a couple of pit stops in GP. Well, yeah, in GP2 everyone has yet to stop, apart from Fitzmaurice. Let me see. In GP1 everyone has stopped. And let's keep an eye on the GP3 cars. And looks like almost everyone who's still in the running has stopped, apart from Greg Brockway, as I heard some very, very dangerous noises there.
Like, was that an engine going out, or was that someone contacted the wall?
Okay,
Certainly sounded like it.
Huberty is off.
Ooh.
Oh, same crash as before, like he had an identical crash a few laps earlier. But we are already 41 minutes into this race. And as per usual, this championship always providing for some entertaining affairs that they really go by very, very quickly, as that was Brockway. Yeah, we were just talking about him. He is the last driver of the GP3 cars to pit. Of course, this really shows that I was not doubting it, but what Daniel was saying earlier was definitely true, because these MX-5s can go, and also these Austin remembers the Sim Racers World Enduro races where the TCRs and the GT4 can go for hours. Like almost 1 hour and a half of fuel tank available for these cars. So
yeah, 30 straight gallons in that thing. It's a massive tank, and I'm afraid of what a tank slapper feels like in that car.
Yeah, and of course you have to consider that in the Porsche, for example, the as in basically all the racing Porsches that I can remember, the fuel tank is in the front, if I'm not mistaken. So the car gets heavier when you pit, and then gets lighter and lighter during the stint. And of course, the more you go ahead, the more you need to account for this. iRacing certainly does.
Right. I think that's a really great comment to just like kind of repeat there, that you know these the way these cars change their handling characteristics as your fuel load changes are very different. These GT4s will feel lighter and lighter in the front as they come low on fuel. So you know that may explain some more of the push type incidents we see towards the end of fuel stints.
The leaders in the GP2. We have this lovely livery from Christer.
That is very close between them, as they have their own little drag races. Rye Galloway spots that, and he really wanted to be ahead of him on that pit exit.
Let's get some of that lovely Mustang sound. You know how much of a Ford fan I am, Austin.
Is this a crank it up?
Yeah, why not?
So let's crank it up.
There we are. So during practice, I found these Mustangs were easily able to, keep some of the higher corner speeds through 6. They were just really gentle. You didn't have to worry about them. Some of the other cars felt a little more on edge. So it's, interesting to see how some of these cars trade off. Oh, and that's Slavonic trying to get into the middle of that battle. So that's definitely changing the outcome for those guys.
He just had the fastest lap of the race in TCR GP1. Did Slavonic. It still doesn't see. I know it's true because the clock doesn't lie, but to see these Mustangs being overtaken by these TCRs, it's still strange to me. Like that shouldn't be the case,
V8s are faster than an Audi.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, but unfortunately these Audis are, tuned better and not restricted.
And they have, of course, also the advantage of having, proper racing tires. If I'm not mistaken, the Mustang has road tires.
Yes, the Mustangs are operating on road tire.
And they are very small tires, like too small for the car, in my opinion. So, and this is a big, heavy, powerful car. So the delay.
A famous quote by Carroll Shelby that there's no such thing as too much horsepower, just too small of tires.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
I mean, and also you have to account for the fact that these tires being road-going tires and being very small, you have almost like an input delay with this car when you.
Ooh.
And we have some drama at the front.
Drama in the top 10 of the GTOs. Kessler and Leary got into each other, and Leary is crabbing along. There's the Kessler contact with Leary, and that upset Leary, and Leary came across and smacked into Kessler.
Looked like Leary was fighting some suspension damage there.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what happened to him. So he went wide, and then he spun, and that's the first bit. Then he rejoined, okay.
But I think we're looking for on the outside of 7 there, yeah. I think that's where he lost his...
Yeah, but he was going very, very slowly. Like... Let's see if we
Kessler
can...
had to run.
Let's see if he had... Oh, I think he already had some damage.
Oh.
Yeah, that car is not going straight. Okay.
Yeah, I can see him already struggling with it. He might have had contact with a car going into the pit lane and might have smacked into him, as there's Kessler rejoining onto his rear right now. And, he's got that turn locked down.
Seems to be going fine now that he has cleaned his tires, so to speak. But he came out of...
Kessler.
Oh, there was... Let's see, some traffic. He takes a
he just had a bad
line,
it was just a bad line.
Yeah.
And then, he had to check up going into there. And, that is unfortunate for both those drivers.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there wasn't much that either could do in that spot, except for make a different decision earlier before the corner. So but as we hop on board with Chris DeShong, as he's chasing down Lupfer. Now, the last couple races, DeShong has ran away with this this class, this GP2 class. So it's really great to see him have some competition. Wow, that GTO car hopping some curbs to try and pass between the two.
Yeah, definitely. These guys are taking every chance that they could get to get any bit of advantage. And I'm honestly all for it.
I absolutely love that the classes in this championship all have the same name of another race class, but of course they're completely different. Of course, GTO, who can forget those beautiful cars. GP2 and GP3 recently became F2 and F3, and GP1, believe it or not, maybe you are a bit too young to remember, but GP1 was the working title of what then would has become MotoGP. It was GP, and I still think that the technical rule are technically the GP1 rule for MotoGP racing.
I did not know that.
Motorsports history with Mark Barbonero, ladies and gentlemen, here on Apex Racing TV on all iWRL streams.
This might sound obvious to both of you, but it feels like, because we had a much smaller field today, there's a much smaller number of close battles. In the last few races, we were really following close battles left and right, but it seems
we
like
were also at smaller tracks too.
Well, Road America was not that small.
Road America is a track that you blink after 2 laps, there's cars everywhere.
And everyone loves Road America, so...
That is true. Sonoma is a bit of a different beast.
Yeah, and as you see, Foweather chasing Carver up through turn 1 here. These 2 cars, it's interesting because they really depend on this inner line on turn 2. To give them that, a little bit of camber to help get the front way down. Otherwise, they just plow off straight over the hill. So it's neat to see these guys, as they're pushing it, to be so consistent. And then they toss it into 3 here, up over 3A. Really such a fun track to race. Man, these guys have it down. Deschang and Lupfer still duking it out.
Yeah, Lupfer at a moment a few seconds ago. Not much, but yeah, Deschang wasn't waiting for anything else than to a mistake from the driver in first to close the gap very, very quickly, and here we are again. Fantastic fight for the victory in GP2.
Yep, and I like Deschang's entry there, but they got to deal with traffic. Wow.
Speaking of traffic, that traffic squeezing them both onto the apex and onto the curb. They're stretching these Fords to get pretty skinny. And I don't know if you try to make a Mustang try to be a show pony, but it doesn't turn out to be a pretty idea.
Always the Texas references, Austin. Always the Texas reference.
That was a Texas reference? I thought I was making sense.
Oh. Yep. Yeah, it looks like Deschang lost just ever so slightly on the exit of turn 7 there. He got on power just a little early and pushed wide. But, yeah, much more stable and controlled through the 8s, though. See how they do in turn 10.
A little bit of dirt being kicked up right there. And Lupfer, he's after last time, he doesn't have a car up his inside, but he's going to take it a little bit more cautious as Deschang is getting up into that bumper right now.
Yeah, that was a really great line by Deschang. He used all the track there. Got on power just a little early, saw a little bit of back end slide, but once the weight, the load shifted over the rear tires, he seemed to be, ready to go. Yeah, it's definitely a tough track to pass on. There's only so many places that you can make a move that's safe. Other moves are just aggressive, and you have to really pick and choose your places here.
I definitely can't say no to you gotta have a bit of aggressiveness, and I just noticed that little tongue-in-cheek sponsor that Lupfer's got on his car. It's not a Shell logo, it's the Hell logo. You can get a shot of the hood. Instead of Shell, it is Hell. And instead of a shell, it's a demon face.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, let's see if we get the blimp shot up there. But he's taking a little artistic freedom with his car.
Let's see, I was looking at some lap times, and actually Slavonic is really pushing hard. Let's see if he can keep up the pace, because look at that. Lots of green. Oh yeah, 2 seconds and a half once again on Musser. I mean, this could get feisty very, very soon.
And you just saw Slavonic push really hard up the side of Todd Carver. Poor Todd's got 3 cars coming up on him into 3. That's, yeah, just definitely a rough place to get past.
Yeah, he's going to overtake it even more right there. Thankfully, the car behind him now is an MX-5. But let's ride on board with Slavonic with 6 minutes to go here at Sonoma Raceway. He's been closing in on Musser for corner after corner. Does he have enough time to close in and try to battle it out for the lead?
And the gearing on these DSGs on the Audi here, they're just ever short for some of the different places on this track. So you'll see him bumping up against the rev limiter, you know, in places that seem really awkward. I know my own personal experience with that gearbox on this track. That's how it feels. You're always holding a longer gear than you need, than you'd think you'd need, because you just seem to run out.
It's like driving the Nürburgring in one of these cars. There is nothing as a second gear corner at the Nürburgring, and especially I've got this from a driving instructor. You're always in third gear. There's never a second gear corner in the Nürburgring if you're in a regular pedestrian car, as the first 2 gears are extremely short in most production cars.
Yeah, the traffic. You know, that's one thing that's really interesting in the last 5 minutes here, to see how Musser and Slavonic deal with some of the traffic, because they do have a few of the GTOs that, you know, look to be keeping pace with them. So, you know, how can they use it to their advantage, you know, gain a draft when they've got an opportunity to, and how do they avoid it costing them time? Ooh, we heard some contact up on the fours there. What happened? Someone hit a wall.
It might have been this. Oh, that's Steve Denton. Bang!
Lost his hood.
Lost his hood over that key corner, that blind apex right there. As I pointed out at the start of the race, you want to avoid that inside curve, because if you just get caught out right there, you're going to lose the back end right now. So we got 2 battles for the lead right now, GP1 and GP2. But as I said, that the Slavonic battle is starting to fall away now, as I believe he's just let back that one GTO. Nope, that GTO car is still there. No, it's Musser now.
Yeah, Slavonic is closing in. He got a draft down that straight.
And that GTO is going to be a pain, especially in this hairpin, because he's got the apex right there, and Slavonic gained on him right now. They got another slow TCR car. Blue flags are being waved, and it's in the tricky opening sector. So this is playing in Slavonic's hand, and the ball is in Musser's court. Where is he going to go? That TCR is holding him off right there, and here comes Slavonic.
Is he going to be patient, because he might go for a lunge here at the right-hander? They both might do.
He needs to go for a lunge.
Woo-hoo! Here we go! I told you.
Oh no!
I told you.
Musser followed a car. Oh my goodness, Musser. That was Dasher right there.
Yep.
Okay, so Dasher got into the grass. Musser was going to brake later than Dasher, but Dasher had nowhere to go, and so Musser just sent it in there. Just already, I believe, committed to that line. He wasn't patient about it at all, and that has propelled Slavonic into the lead. And with that speed that he was gaining on Musser, it looks like this might be Paul Slavonic's race. But never count the chickens before they hatch. We still got 2 minutes before this race is decided between these two.
Another moment for the Shong as he's trying to catch.
Ooh.
I mean, if you want to go off track here, do it there. I think out of all the places, that's the least dangerous, as the gap is ebbing and flowing. Again, the Shong using everything he can find in the track and more. Let's see the delta between the two of them. And actually the gap has increased slightly over the past, but you know, still there, 0.3, 1 second.
You can see Chong came in hard on the brakes there. hard on the brakes. He closed the gap significantly coming into turn 11. I mean, that was a big win.
Yeah, DeShong is nearing that crunch time mode, and he's using these lap cars to try to upset Lutfer up there. There's a lot of tire squealing happening ahead of him.
Yeah, and they've had, not only do they have traffic there lapping in front of them, but DeShong also has some traffic lapping him. That's, you know, he's trying to follow through. So let's see if it impacts Lutfer a little more than DeShong.
Sadro was getting into the back of Lutfer.
Sadro going a little wider than you like there. He's just edging on the grass. And here's Todd Carver, who's caught in the middle.
Oh, sorry if I jump away very quickly, but are we going to get another lap?
I believe so. Well, why does
race leader has no hood?
Why is
no
he
hood.
missing a hood?
And Price has closed the gap. It's down to 2.7.
And that gap's falling down as we have another lap to go here at Sonoma. The overall lead might be in
Price and a Mazda
jeopardy.
just got in contact in turn 1 there. You'll see that little Mazda got thrown way off.
Yeah, that Mazda is in the bridge right now.
The Mazda didn't know where to go, and Price didn't have a good place to pass.
This is Greg Brockway, and Star Cone, and
and some problem for Aubrey Condell. Maybe too little fuel.
Oh no!
And a pit stop.
Oh no! Made the bet, and it's not working. But speaking of not working, Galloway's pace is falling off as Price is closing in.
In a half lap, he's lost a whole second. Wow.
This can be the race right here. He's got Kessler ahead of him. As Galloway, a few more corners left to go. He's got to get a bit more aggressive, as this is getting even more crazy. As we're trying to look at Price to see if he's going to try anything ridiculous right here. But no.
Too much traffic.
Too much traffic ahead of him. Not going to try to go for it, but he has closed down a gap that we... Oh my goodness, Kessler has held off Price.
Wow, that's... I heard contact there.
He's not happy about... They've crashed. Price has crashed. He stopped. Price and Kessler, I believe, collided with each other, and I think there might have been a pit maneuver into utter existence right there.
So here's Slavonic winner in GP1. Let's see GP2. Then we'll go and review what happened there. Looks like Lupfer has been able to stop the charge. And he is coming home, stop the charge of the Shong and come home with the victory. Congratulations also to Jared Joseph. We'll get cameras on him very, very soon, as he has just won the GP3 class. Here is the GP2 winner there. And here is your winner in GP3. Let's see what happened there.
So this is just a obvious driver argument. He was a lap car. He was going slow, and he obviously fell. Oh!
I think he lost it there. He lost his rear end.
Now that was completely opposite of what I thought happened. I thought that was Price just getting upset at Kessler, but no, that was Kessler coming into Price and sending him around.
Now, is there and very sorry for my ignorance in this. Is there an incident limit? Because it looked like Kessler got sent into the sin bin after that contact.
Yeah, there is now. At the beginning of this series, there was not, but there currently is an incident limit. How many incidents did he have?
Whatever the limit is.
Didn't look like it was that many.
I don't think he crossed the
finish line. I remember Kessler was in about 4 incidents that we've seen so far.
Yeah, Kessler just would have run into... He probably towed himself, but he ran into the black flag stop-and-go penalty at 15. So we do issue a stop and go at 15, and then you aren't booted out of the race until a few more than that. So, wow, that was a really interesting ending to the chase for the chase there. I guess Smith ran into a lot of traffic between the second half of the track. He was on pace to catch Galloway. That was, I'm surprised that he wasn't able to. It just came down to dumb luck that there were all those cars right there. Wow.
And now that everyone is home, safe and mostly safe, let's go with the race results, starting with the GTO category.
Taking a win here, it's Ryan Galloway, followed by John D. Price, Chris Pies, Leif Peterson, Greg Kusel, Aubrey Kundal, Tom Gradwell, Marshall Aiken, Stephen Denton, Peter Kessler, Dan Huberty, Jim Kessler. Okay, that explains a lot now. There's 2 Kesslers in there. Paul Denton, Brian Leary, Chris Davis, Cameron Lawrence, Aaron Nash, and Jacob Tompkins, followed by Tim Moore and Sean Moffitt, your GTO field.
And our much smaller GP1 field, we had Paul Slavonic, who made away with it at the end there after Jordan Musser had his run in with one of the other TCR cars, who came in second. Then Daniel Sadro came in third, and Dave Dasher came in fourth.
Oh dear, sorry. Apologies.
It's all right. It's a small class today.
No,
and,
Austin is used to this. This is like my big problem. I forget to switch pages or to move to the other categories. But to my defense, I was giving the Discord link in the in-race chat for the drivers.
Okay. Thank
Which
you very much.
is the best chat to get all these race winners in there. Speaking of race winners, here's your winner for GP2, Max Lufer, Chris DeShong, followed by Phil Fitzmaurice and JT Tommy.
And we had Jared Joseph and Todd Carver again at the top of GP3, but this time Jared Joseph came ahead with a very large margin of 32 seconds over the position 2, Todd Carver. Todd Carver was followed by Simon Foweather in a real close battle to the end, and that rounds out your podium in GP3, followed by Greg Mack and Greg Brockway in positions 4 and 5, and Mike Bond and Alan Dobbs in positions 6 and 7. And that is our whole race list.
Yeah, and speaking of Jared Joseph, I just moved him into the wrong. Speaking of Jared Joseph, he is with us in our commentary booth right now. So welcome, Jared. How was that race for you? And congrats on the win.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, it was. I mean, I got the win, got it done. It was traffic was kind to me, so I love that. My teammate, not so much, but it was fun and clean.
So you mentioned traffic. How was the traffic around here? I noticed a lot of incidents, especially in the first sector. Cars just couldn't get passed around each and every one of you, and I noticed for multiple times that you had cars on every side of you, and all of them wanted to get past in the same corner. What was going through your mind when they were all bunched up behind you?
Oh yeah, I was just trying to, that's a survival deal. Be clean, keep a good line, keep a predictable line so you don't get ran. And I think I got out of that without any incidents, so I'm super happy.
Well, you certainly earned a lot of that bubble you got on the top step of the podium after that.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well, before we let you go, anyone you want to thank?
My wife, like always, and Todd Carver for helping the sim and the real world, and hopefully we get a better race next.
All right. Thank you, Jared. And I hope you have a good night.
All right. Thank you, guys. Night.
Who do we have next, Marco?
Well, you can either chat with Max Lupfer or Paul Slavonic. The choice is all yours.
Well, Max is a newcomer to the podium, our post-race interviews. Let's see if we can pull him in next.
There is.
All right. Hi, Max. Congratulations on the win there in the Mustangs. Seemed like a little bit of a new face, so congratulations. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I did one of the races. I think it was Sebring, way back a long time ago, but I've had some other stuff going on Tuesday night, so I haven't been able to return until this week. But it's good to be back. I'm glad I had a really fun battle with Chris. Well, I mean, we were nose to tail for 45 laps or 45 minutes of that race, so that was a really tough struggle to get by him and also keep pace in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, it was. We had a lot of fun watching it here in the booth, and hopefully the viewers did as well. But while that battle was going on, what were some of the things going through your head? It seemed like you two traded in a few different places.
Yeah, I think some of that had to deal with our setups. His was very good straight out of the box, whereas mine took a couple laps to come in, but I could keep pace more consistently throughout the run. So kind of by the time we were getting to the pit stops, he was maybe a half a second down per lap off of me, whereas I hadn't really dropped much time since the start of the race. So I was a little bit afraid coming out of the pits because he was so close, and I knew he was going to be quick right out of the get-go, but I figured as long as I could keep him behind me, the race would kind of come back into my favor as the laps progressed.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well there. It seemed like you were dealing with a little bit of traffic and you had to fight through kind of creatively towards the end. What are the things you look for in those opportunities?
So being the third of the slowest car, you're kind of more so looking towards who's coming up behind you. And thankfully with Chris behind me, I could kind of see how much struggle that person was giving him and then kind of plan accordingly to try to let that person pass as efficiently as possible. And sometimes I was working, but there was also like a white and blue Cayman that just gave us both a struggle and we both lost time trying to let that guy by.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I guess before we let you go, do you have anyone you want to thank or any shout outs you want to give?
Just want to say that hopefully everyone's being safe in this pandemic, taking their precautions, going out as low as they can, but still enjoying life. And if you can, come out and sim race with us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thanks for the great show and congratulations again on the win. Hopefully we see you again in a couple weeks.
Thank you, guys.
Well, Austin, who's next up on the list?
That would be Paul Savonik. Howdy. Oh, howdy, Paul. How are you doing?
Oh, wrong button. There we go. Hey, doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing great when we're all hitting the wrong buttons here today. But it seemed like you were hitting all the right buttons and all the right pedal moves and turns as you got another win here.
Yeah, that was. This is probably going to go down as one of the more memorable ones, mostly because it's Revenge of the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and Taco Tuesday. That to have all those lined up, it's perfect, and to get a race win. So this was definitely a huge battle, and Jordan really put up an awesome fight, and this really good racing.
It certainly is a trifecta of great things, and to add a crown onto there with a win and a very close battle throughout most of the race. You and Jordan were nose to tail, and it came all the way up into the final moments where you're catching right up with Jordan, and it was the you came up onto the back of Dave Dasher, and just talk us through that corner.
Well, I caught up to Jordan pretty quick. I took a gamble. I wasn't planning to take tires, and when I had an off and Jordan went by, and then we went into the pits right after that, I said, you know what? There's only 4 cars on the grid. Let me just take a chance and take front tires. And we both pretty much hit our pit stall at the same time. I actually missed mine, and I had to back up. And he took off early, and then I'm sitting in the pits for 10, 15, 20, 25 seconds. And when I finally got out, he was like 14 seconds ahead of me. I thought it was done, but with the tires and traffic and everything, I was able to catch back up to him. And when I saw him, and he was behind a lap GP1 car, I was really hoping the guy would move over a little bit so we could have a good fight and everything. It's unfortunate that it ended like that and everything, but honestly, I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to get by him. I'd used up pretty much all my tires up to that point just to catch him, and there's only a few more minutes left in the race. And even with better rubber, it would have taken really just a mistake from Jordan for me to get by, as it's so hard to pass on this track.
It certainly is, especially with all the traffic around you. It's wider than all the tracks that we were used to being. So I was hoping it wouldn't be. I was looking forward to be more racing throughout there, but still traffic was being as much of a problem as it was. But hey, it worked out great in your favor. So before we let you go, anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, thanks to you guys for putting on the show, and for Steve Ray for setting all this up. Also got to thank Dan Dewar. I know he doesn't really get a lot of credit for all the stuff he does behind the scenes with keeping things organized and setting up practice sessions for all of us. So big thanks to Dan for setting everything up for this league, and to all the drivers too for racing. For the most part, pretty clean. There are a few little eventful moments, but this was a fun race. I really enjoyed it.
We're glad
Much
you enjoyed
appreciated.
it.
Thanks.
Oh, there's
Hey.
Dan. Dan hopped in for a little how do you do? Well, we got one interview left, and that is with our overall winner. And Marco, I'm going to leave him all to you.
Perfect. And here we go with a race winner then. Ray Galloway, how are you doing?
Doing fine. How are you guys?
Awesome. And it looked like you had a little bit of a scare towards the end. What happened to your car? Because all of a sudden we noticed that you were missing some important bits on your front end.
I wish they had stayed there. I mean, I'm not certain what happened. I think I was checking to see how much time was left in the race, and then just at the wrong moment and lost the car. And this car is so difficult to catch once it lets go. It just does its own thing. And so I was in the wall, and luckily had enough of a lead. I was able to just barely keep first place in front of John D. Price, who was setting a really good pace and had a really good race today.
I was racing today in general. I mean, track we know is not one of the easiest to drive, especially with all these different cars running around. How was racing in general today?
The multi-class aspect of it was actually pretty good. Most of the drivers were being aware of their surroundings and leaving room when they could. This track though is just it's tough. I mean, small mistakes add up to big differences, impacts on your lap time, and like happened to me, just it can bite you if you're not paying attention.
Well, in the end, everything went well. I'm very, very happy for you. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank?
Shout out to WRL for hosting this series. I'm glad they're able to do this iRacing series. Dan Doer for all of his support and making this all work. Apex Racing TV, you guys for having a great broadcast. And also shout out to Rensport KC, my teammates, for supporting me and all this craziness.
Thanks a lot, man. We will catch you very, very soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Take care.
And that was our overall race winner, Ray Galloway, in the 23 Porsche Cayman GT4. And I think with that we are almost ready to call it a night. What do you say, gentlemen?
I say it certainly is that time. But before we do that, Daniel, where are we heading next week?
We've got a little change of schedule in that we were originally scheduled for Lime Rock Park, but given the size of fields we had been seeing, there's a decision to change the track.
Smart
so we'll
boys.
be visiting Okayama instead.
Yes!
Woo! You just made Marco and my favorite, that is our favorite track here on iRacing.
It's such a great track, and I hope it supports the cars and it feels like a safe track to pass on, but it should give us some really exciting racing.
Well, I'm certainly excited. Can it be 2 weeks from now already? Because I really want to see this now. I certainly am excited. I know Marco is excited. I hope you're excited. Thank you, everyone, for watching on Apex Racing TV. I've been joined by Daniel Doer, Marco Barbanero, who's been giving us his lovely voice, lovely cameras, lovely graphics here today. And I'm Austin Knight, and I hope y'all have a good night.